Arnold Schwarzenegger built his life on control, but for years he avoided telling the full story of how his closest friend, Franco Columbu, died. Conflicting reports only deepen the mystery. Keep watching as I break down what really happened on that beach in Sardinia. Franco Columbu was in Sardinia the way he was every summer, back home, back on the island where he grew up, back near the water he loved. He was 78 years old, still built like a fire plug, still the guy who used to lift cars for a camera. He wasn't sick, he wasn't frail. He was just swimming in the sea, off a beach town called San Teodoro, on what should have been an ordinary vacation afternoon. Then something went wrong. An eyewitness account from a longtime friend, Rick Drassen, suggests that after jumping into the water, Columbu went under and did not resurface. Think about that for a second. This is a two-time Mr. Olympia, a man who spent his whole life being the strongest guy in the room, and he went under the water and didn't come back up on his own. His publicist was reportedly nearby, pulled him out of the water, and attempted to revive him while waiting for paramedics. That's the part that doesn't get repeated enough. Somebody was right there. Somebody physically dragged him out of the sea and tried to keep him alive before any medical team even arrived. Every second in that gap mattered. A helicopter was dispatched to transport him to the John Paul II Hospital in Albia. A helicopter, not an ambulance, not a boat. They airlifted him because every minute counted, and the coastline wasn't going to get him there fast enough any other way. And then the outcome nobody wanted. He was pronounced dead upon arrival. Now here's where the story splits, and where Arnold would eventually have to clear things up. In the first wave of reporting, nobody could agree on what actually killed him. The Italian star passed away Friday after drowning in his native Sardinia, according to the Associated Press. That's one version. But other outlets ran it completely differently. Franco Columbu died Friday after suffering a heart attack while swimming off the coast of Sardinia, Italy, according to reports at the time. So which is it? Did he drown, or did his heart give out and the drowning was just what happened after? The hospital that treated him didn't clear things up either. His death was confirmed by a doctor at the hospital, who did not specify the cause. No cause of death publicly from the people who actually had him in front of them. That's the vacuum Arnold eventually had to step into. This is where Arnold's own words become the center of the story, because he was the one who ended up giving the world the closest thing to a real account. Arnold posted a tribute the day it happened, and later in interviews, he filled in the medical piece himself. On Howard Stern's show years afterward, revisiting the loss of his friend, Arnold said plainly, he had a heart attack. No hedging, no reportedly, no sources say. Straight from Arnold, a heart attack. That single line matters more than it might seem, because Arnold isn't a reporter repeating wire copy. He's the guy who was told directly what happened to his best friend. When the man closest to Franco says it was his heart, that carries more weight than a dozen unnamed sources. But the reactions in the hours after Franco died tell you just how blindsided everyone around him was, because nobody, not his friends, not his training partners, saw this coming. Sylvester Stallone, who'd known Franco for decades through Arnold, posted his own tribute calling him the greatest and strongest bodybuilder I have ever met, and added that the bodybuilding world would never have a man like him again. Then there was Alex Ardenti, a documentary filmmaker who was actually in Sardinia at the time, just hours from where it happened. He posted that his mother was staying in the family home in Sardinia, only 2 hours away from where Franco passed, and that Franco had been swimming in the ocean when he had a heart attack. And despite being flown by helicopter to the nearest hospital, there was nothing they could do to revive him. That's a third independent account landing on the same word Arnold would later use, heart attack. And then there's Rick Drassen, the same friend whose eyewitness account described Franco going under the water. Drassen didn't hide how blindsided he was either. Speaking on his own show, he said Columbu's death felt like something he never in a million years thought would happen, calling it such a surprise that he was still in shock. So you've got 4 separate people, Arnold, Stallone, Ardenti, and Drassen, all reacting within the same window of days. And the picture that emerges isn't confusion. It's grief layered over a scramble to understand a fast, sudden collapse in the water. A guy nobody thought could be taken down like that, taken down in an instant. That's the hook of this whole story. Not just that Franco Columbu died, everybody knew that within hours. It's that the exact how stayed murky for a long time. Official sources wouldn't commit to a cause. And it took Arnold himself, piece by piece, across interviews and posts over the following years, to actually tell people what he'd been told about his best friend's final moments. To understand why that answer matters so much, why it wasn't just a footnote, why the world needed Arnold specifically to say it. You have to understand who Franco Columbu was to him, because this wasn't some co-star or old acquaintance. This was 54 years of somebody's life. Before there was a beach in Sardinia, before there was a hospital in Albia, there was a gym in Munich. That's where this whole friendship started, decades before either man became famous, back when they were just two guys chasing the same obsession. The two men built their friendship after meeting in Germany 54 years before Franco's death, which puts the origin story back in the mid-1960s. Two young bodybuilders, an ocean away from the fame that would eventually follow both of them. Arnold was the tall Austrian with the outsized ambition. Franco was the short, thick, ferociously strong Sardinian who'd started out as a boxer before switching to lifting. They didn't just train in the same city, they moved together. With Schwarzenegger, Columbu moved to California in the late 1960s to train and work with Joe Weider, the bodybuilding impresario who was building an entire industry around men like them. That's not a casual friendship. That's two guys packing up their lives on another continent and betting on the same dream at the same time. And the bond didn't fade once the fame hit. If anything, it got stitched deeper into both of their families. Columbu formed a lifelong friendship with Schwarzenegger, and was Schwarzenegger's best man for his marriage to Maria Shriver in 1986 and godfather to their daughter Christina. Think about the weight of that. Best man at the wedding, godfather to the kid. That's not the resume of a workout buddy. That's family, chosen and kept for half a century. Arnold said as much himself, years before Franco died, describing their bond in a way that made clear nothing about their friendship was performative for the cameras. In 2016, Arnold put it simply, Franco was his favorite training partner 4 decades earlier, and he was still his favorite training partner in the present. 40 years apart, and the answer to who's your favorite training partner didn't change. The friendship survived fame, survived Hollywood, survived Arnold becoming governor of California. Through all of it, Franco stayed close. Even Time magazine noticed it, describing Franco in a cover story on Arnold's political rise as something close to a Sancho Panza figure, the loyal right hand riding alongside the more famous man, offering commentary that was equal parts humor and hard truth. Franco was quoted in that piece describing Arnold's political ambitions as wanting to do something big and beneficial, more than a movie, like fixing the problems in California. That's a friend who understood exactly what drove the other guy and said so publicly. By the time Franco died, this wasn't a friendship measured in years. It was measured in half a lifetime spent side by side. Gyms, film sets, a wedding altar, a christening, and decades of dinners, wine, and cigars in between. Which is exactly why Arnold's own words the day it happened landed so hard. He didn't write a press release tribute. He wrote something raw. From the minute we met in Munich, you were my partner in crimes, he wrote. We pushed each other, we competed with each other, and we laughed at every moment along the way. And then he admitted something that famously controlled men don't usually admit in public. I am devastated today, he wrote. But I am also so grateful for the 54 years of friendship and joy we shared. 54 years, that's the number that tells you this story isn't about two celebrities who crossed paths. It's about two teenagers from opposite ends of the world who found each other in a gym and never really let go. That friendship is also the reason Arnold felt obligated to eventually clear up how Franco died, rather than let it sit as a vague, conflicting headline forever. When you spent 54 years next to somebody, you don't let their death become a rumor. You find out exactly what happened, and eventually, you say it out loud. But to really get why Franco's death hit the bodybuilding world as hard as it did, why Stallone, Drasen, and a whole generation of lifters reacted the way they did, you need to understand what Franco actually did with his life outside of being Arnold's best friend. Because long before he was known as Arnold's guy, Franco Columbu was one of the most feared men in his sport, in his own right. Franco Columbu wasn't famous because he stood next to Arnold Schwarzenegger. He was famous because he could do things with his body that made other strong men's jaws drop. And he built that reputation over 2 decades of competition, film, and pure physical stunt work. He started as a boxer back in Italy before switching disciplines entirely. Columbu was a talented boxer before he gravitated to powerlifting and bodybuilding in the mid-1960s. And though he stood under 5 feet 6 inches tall and usually weighed around 185 pounds, diminutive for what people picture as an atlas, he sculpted his muscles enough to win titles like Mr. Universe, Mr. World, and twice Mr. Olympia. 2 Olympia titles from a man who was shorter than most people in the room. That tells you everything about the density of muscle and sheer force he carried. His party trick, if you can call it that, became legendary in bodybuilding circles. Columbu frequently showed off his strength by, for example, blowing up a hot water bottle orally until it burst or lifting a car. That car lifting moment wasn't just gym gossip, it made it onto film. Columbu's most notable film was Pumping Iron, a bodybuilding documentary that helped grow the sport, with a memorable scene where he picked up a car and moved it so somebody could park in that space. That single scene introduced Franco to millions of people who'd never followed competitive bodybuilding a day in their life. Hollywood noticed, and because Arnold was already becoming a movie star, Franco followed him onto set after set. Franco went on to work in a number of other TV and film projects with his friend of over 50 years, including Conan the Barbarian in 1982, The Terminator in 1984, and The Running Man in 1987. He wasn't just an extra riding on Arnold's coattails, either. He had actual character work, memorable enough that fans still bring it up decades later. Then, when the lifting and the acting slowed down, Franco reinvented himself again. Upon his retirement, Columbu became a licensed chiropractor and maintained a practice in Los Angeles for several years. A two-time Mr. Olympia turned health professional, still working with people's bodies, just from a different angle. He also wrote instructional books that shaped an entire generation of home gym rats, guys who never met him but grew up on his training manuals, memorizing his routines out of paperback books before the internet existed. That's part of why his death hit so hard and hit so many people who never met him personally. One tribute after his death captured a sentiment that a lot of the bodybuilding community shared, that it's peculiar that most people remember Franco as Arnold's friend, when he was also a two-time Mr. Olympia, a world-class strongman, movie director, nutritionist, trainer, and chiropractor. He'd built an entire career, several careers actually, independent of the guy he was best friends with. And yet the friendship was so famous, it sometimes overshadowed everything else he'd done. His hometown felt it too. Franco didn't cut ties with Sardinia after moving to America. He went back every single year, which is exactly why he was there when it happened. The mayor of Columbu's hometown of Alalai called his death very painful news, saying Franco had been Alalai's ambassador to the world, someone who returned home for roughly 3 weeks every year between August and September. That detail matters because it means Franco's final trip wasn't some rare one-off vacation. It was a ritual he kept up for decades, going home to the same sea, the same beaches, every single year of his adult life. The place that took him was the same place that made him. So by the time news broke that Franco had died in the water off San Teodoro, it wasn't just Arnold mourning a friend. It was an entire sport mourning a man who'd helped build it. A two-time champion, a movie strongman, a chiropractor, an author, and a hometown hero, all in one compact, ferociously strong body. Which brings us back to the actual mystery at the center of this story. With a resume like that, a body conditioned for decades of extreme physical output, how exactly did a man like Franco Columbu go under the water and not come back up? Here's where the story gets genuinely complicated. Because for a long stretch after Franco died, there wasn't one clean answer. There were competing ones, and none of them came from an official source willing to put their name on it. Start with the basic facts nobody disputed. Local reporting said Columbu drowned while swimming at the beach in the town of San Teodoro in Sardinia at around 2 in the afternoon local time. Drowning was in the story from the very first hour, but almost immediately, a second explanation started running alongside it. Other reports said that Columbu suffered a heart attack while swimming. So which came first? Did his heart give out, and that's why he went under? Or did something else happen in the water that caused the drowning, full stop? For a man whose entire identity was built on physical dominance, that question mattered more than usual. It's one thing to say a frail 80-year-old passed away swimming. It's another to say one of the strongest human beings on the planet, still active, still training, dropped in the water. A physician who writes about fitness and health, Dr. Gabe Merkin, actually addressed this directly not long after Franco's death, and he was upfront about the limits of what anyone outside the family actually knew. He said plainly that he hadn't seen Columbu's medical records and didn't know the cause of his death. But he also laid out the reasoning that a lot of people in the fitness world were quietly thinking. He noted that Columbu was one of the world's strongest men, did a prodigious amount of exercise, and was in very good shape at 78, but that it was reported he died after feeling ill while swimming. And it seemed hard to believe that one of the world's fittest men would simply drown without some other underlying cause, with a heart attack being the most likely explanation. He went further, raising something the bodybuilding world doesn't always like to talk about openly. He pointed out that bodybuilders and athletes in other strength sports are known for using performance drugs that can build bigger muscles but carry unfortunate long-term side effects on the heart, and added that while he had no specific evidence, this applied to Columbu. A disproportionate number of strength athletes have died of heart attacks. That's not an accusation aimed at Franco specifically. It's a doctor pointing out a pattern across an entire sport, and noting that Franco's death fit uncomfortably well into that pattern, whether or not it was ultimately the cause. Meanwhile, the hospital that actually treated Franco never gave the public a definitive answer either way. Multiple outlets tried to pin it down and kept hitting the same wall. His death was confirmed by a doctor at the hospital who did not specify the cause. No autopsy result made public. No official medical statement beyond he died. That silence is exactly what let both theories, drowning and heart attack, survive side by side for years, repeated in article after article without resolution. Even years later, people trying to nail down a definitive cause kept running into the same fog. Reporting looking back at the incident concluded that reports on the precise cause of death varied initially, with some outlets citing drowning, while others, citing unnamed sources, mentioned a potential heart attack while swimming, and the hospital never specified an official cause. This is exactly the gap Arnold eventually filled, not with a press release, not with a lawyer's statement, but with his own plain words in a conversation years after the fact. When he sat across from Howard Stern and the subject of his old friend came up, he didn't dance around it or repeat the vague, became ill while swimming language that dominated the initial reporting. He said it directly: Franco had a heart attack. Coming from Arnold, that's about as close to a final word as this story was ever going to get, because he's the person who would have actually been told the medical details by Franco's family, not someone relying on a wire report out of an Italian hospital. It lines up, too, with what people physically present were saying in real time. Remember Alex Ardenti, the family friend who was in Sardinia within hours of the tragedy. His account, given the same day, said Franco was swimming in the ocean when he had a heart attack, and that despite being flown by helicopter to the nearest hospital, doctors couldn't revive him. That's a first-hand account from someone close to the family, landing on the same explanation Arnold would later confirm publicly. So when you put it all together, the doctor's reasoning about strength athletes and heart strain, the family friend's on-the-ground account from the day itself, and Arnold's own flat statement years later, the picture that emerges is a lot clearer than the initial scattershot headlines made it seem. A heart attack in the water, followed by a drowning that was really just the physical consequence of a heart that had already stopped doing its job. The hospital never put that in an official statement, but the people closest to Franco didn't need a hospital statement to know what they'd been told. What's left, then, isn't really a mystery about the medical cause anymore. It's the story of what that loss did to the people who loved him, and how long it's taken Arnold to actually talk about it in public without breaking down. Losing Franco didn't hit Arnold once and then fade. It's kept resurfacing, year after year, in small, specific ways that show a man who never really got over it. He just learned how to carry it differently. The day it happened, Arnold didn't just post a quick tribute and move on. He sat down and wrote something longer, more deliberate. On the day that Columbu died, Schwarzenegger wrote a post on Medium titled, "To My Best Friend." That's not a caption dashed off in grief. That's a man taking the time, in the middle of the worst day, to put together something that would actually last, something people could go back and read years later to understand what Franco meant to him. And people did keep coming back to it. Every year around the anniversary, Arnold has marked the date in his own way, and the tributes have gotten more personal rather than less. On one of those anniversaries, he didn't post a photo of trophies or magazine covers. He shared a photo of the two of them playing chess while smoking cigars, captioned "The Last Chess Game," with the two of them appearing to just be starting their match. Not a highlight reel moment, a quiet one. Two old friends, a chessboard, cigars, no cameras chasing them, just an ordinary night that turned out to be their last one like it. The caption that went with it was simple, almost understated for a man not usually known for understatement. "Today, it's been 6 years since Franco left us," he wrote, "but he's still with me every single day." 6 years, and the language hadn't softened into distance. It had gotten more intimate, if anything, less about loss as an event, and more about loss as something that just lives alongside you permanently. Fans noticed, and the comments under these anniversary posts became their own small tribute wall. People wrote things like calling Franco a legend, writing "Franco forever" with an Italian flag, and saying they couldn't believe it had already been that long. Others zeroed in on exactly what made the friendship remarkable in the first place, with one comment wishing for a friendship even half as deep as theirs, and another calling it a bond between two legends of the sport. It wasn't just Arnold mourning publicly. It became a small yearly ritual for an entire community of people who'd grown up idolizing both men. Stallone's tribute from the day Franco died has aged the same way. It wasn't a passing celebrity condolence. It was somebody who understood exactly what bodybuilding lost. He'd already said the sport would never see another man like Franco again, and nothing in the years since has made that statement feel like an exaggeration. If anything, as bodybuilding has drifted further from its golden era roots, from the Gold's Gym crowd, the pumping iron generation, the guys who built the sport out of nothing but ambition and free weights, Franco's specific combination of strength, charisma, and career range looks harder to replicate with each passing year. Rick Drassen, the friend who gave the account of Franco going under the water, kept talking about him publicly in the years after too, treating Franco's memory the way you treat someone irreplaceable, rather than just another loss in an aging community. He'd built decades of friendship with both Arnold and Franco inside the same gyms, the same era, and he made clear in interviews after the fact that Franco's mindset, the refusal to let anything stand between him and what he wanted to achieve, was exactly what made him who he was. What's changed across all 6+ years since that afternoon in San Teodoro is that Arnold stopped treating the medical details as something to leave vague. Early on, in the rawest hours, his public words were about love and gratitude. The 54 years, the partner in crime, the twinkle in his friend's eye. That was never going to be the moment to get clinical about cardiac events. But as the years passed, and interviewers kept asking, and people kept wondering out loud what actually took Franco Columbu that day, Arnold gave them the plain answer instead of the hospital's silence. A heart attack in the water, in the sea off the coast of the island where Franco was born and where he went back every single year of his life. That's the shape of the whole story now. A friendship that started in a gym in Munich and lasted 54 years. A body that could lift a car and blow up a hot water bottle with nothing but lungs. Brought down not by age or weakness, but by a heart that simply stopped in the middle of the sea he loved. A hospital that never confirmed it publicly, and friends and family who didn't need them to, because they'd already been told the truth. And a man, Arnold Schwarzenegger, who spent years honoring his best friend before he ever spelled out, in his own words, exactly how he lost him. Chess game finished, cigar burned down, and a friendship that, by every account since, never actually ended, even after the man himself did.